After revealing his identity during a hostage situation, Peter Parker and Johnny Storm finally have a chance to talk in private. Once the criminals are dealt with and the authorities arrive, Johnny leaves a fiery message across the sky telling Spider-Man to meet him at their usual spot. Later, the two heroes stand atop the Statue of Liberty, where Johnny is still trying to process what he has learned. Johnny throws his hands into the air in disbelief and blurts out that Peter Parker has been Spider-Man the whole time. He can't believe that after years of friendship, Peter never told him. Peter tries to defend himself, explaining that the whole point of a secret identity is to keep it secret. He says it protects the people he cares about. It stops bad guys from going after my family, or breaking my windows, or calling at 2 in the morning. He adds that he doesn't reveal it very often. That only makes Johnny more frustrated. He immediately asks who else knows. Peter starts listing names. Good guys, right? Well, there's the Black Cat, Daredevil, Wolverine, and Doc Strange figured it out with their powers. Maybe Professor X. And there was this one time a bunch of us met in the park in our civvies. Let's see, Luke Cage was there. Johnny nearly explodes when he hears that. He shouts that even Power Man knew the secret. Peter nods and adds that Luke had been standing right next to Reed Richards. That revelation hits Johnny even harder. Reed knew too, and Johnny didn't. Completely offended, Johnny storms over and starts tugging at Spider-Man's mask, demanding to know how Reed could know before him. Convinced he's being pranked somehow, he jokes about hidden cameras and insists someone reveal the joke. Peter yelps as Johnny pulls on the masks and tells him to be careful because it's stuck. Johnny is baffled by that answer, so Peter explains that he's recently learned to use the same power that lets his fingers stick to walls to keep his mask attached to his face. I got fed up with it being pulled off every 5 minutes. Like it was some kind of drinking game. Spidey loses his mask, take a shot. Trying to calm Johnny down, he tells him that it is really him, Pete, under there and promises to prove it by taking the mask off himself. Peter finally removes his mask, revealing the face. He holds the masks in one hand and asks Johnny if he believes him now. Johnny stares at him in complete disbelief. Looking directly at Peter, he admits that he still can't understand how any of this is possible. Peter begins to joke that the explanation starts with a radioactive spider, but Johnny immediately cuts him off. That's not what he means at all. What he can't understand is how one person could seemingly have everything. As Johnny speaks, he starts listing all the things he believes Peter has been lucky enough to enjoy throughout his life. He talks about Peter growing up with someone as kind and supportive as Aunt May. He points out that Peter became a successful photographer and earned a reputation for himself. He compares Peter's intelligence to Reed Richards, saying Peter has a brain almost impressive as Mr. Fantastic's. Then he brings up Peter's love life, mentioning all the women he's seen Peter with over the years. Man, the girls I've seen you with, God, how I've envied you. To Johnny, Peter has always looked like the guy who somehow lands on his feet no matter what happens. He always seemed to have everything going for him. Peter can only stare back in confusion. The idea sounds completely absurd to him. He blurts out a stunned, "What?" because his own life has rarely felt anything like the picture Johnny is describing. Johnny continues, explaining that his envy became such a long-running joke in his own head that he eventually gave it a name. Johnny referred to it as the Parker look. Peter suddenly bursts into laughter. He throws his head back and laughs so hard that Johnny is completely caught off guard. After listening to everything Johnny just said, Peter finds the entire idea unbelievable. Johnny watches him, confused, and asks what's so funny. Peter points directly at Johnny and repeats the part that shocked him the most. Johnny envied him? Out of everyone in the world, Johnny Storm was jealous of Peter Parker? Peter starts listing all the reasons that sound ridiculous from his perspective. He reminds Johnny of the flashy lifestyle he's always had, the stylish clothes, the sports cars, and the constant attention that comes with being one of the Fantastic Four. He mentions the crowds of fans who adore Johnny wherever he goes and the celebrity status he's enjoyed for years. He talks about the incredible adventures Johnny has experienced alongside the Fantastic Four. While Peter spends most of his time swinging around New York dealing with everyday crime, Johnny has traveled to impossible places, explored bizarre dimensions, and witnessed scientific wonders that most people couldn't even imagine. Entire realms of existence have been opened to him through Reed Richards' discoveries. Exploring realms of science that I'll never get to see? And to have superpowers on top of all that? Johnny tries to object, reminding Peter that he has powers too, but Peter quickly cuts him off. To Peter, the difference isn't the powers themselves. The difference is the burden that comes along with them. He explains, "See, you've got all this power and no responsibility." Looking him straight in the eye, Peter admits that Johnny has no idea how much he has envied him over the years. For the first time in the conversation, Johnny is left without a comeback. All he can manage is a quiet, "Oh." After getting everything out in the open, Peter decides it's time to put the argument behind him. Holding out his hand, he asks Johnny if they're cool now. Johnny smiles and agrees. He steps forward and reaches out to shake Peter's hand. The two finally shake hands, seemingly ending the conversation on good terms. Then Peter immediately ruins the moment. As they shake, a strand of webbing shoots from Spider-Man's wrist and sticks directly to Johnny's hand. Johnny looks down in disgust and blurts out that the webbing is all over him. Peter can't help laughing. "Ha! Can't believe you fell for that." Still staring at the sticky mess on his hand, Johnny asks an uncomfortable question. Since Peter's web shooters are now organic, does that mean the webbing actually comes from his body? Peter casually confirms that it does. Then he makes things much worse by comparing it to snot. Johnny immediately recoils and declares the entire thing gross. A moment later, Peter spots a helicopter passing through the sky. Seeing an opportunity, he announces that his ride has arrived. He fires a web line toward the helicopter. Peter tells Johnny he'd better grab the ride while he can. "See you around, Torch." Before Spider-Man can swing away, Johnny suddenly calls after him. "Wait!" Spider-Man pauses before swinging away and looks back at Johnny. Peter asks what he wanted to say. For a moment, Johnny seems unusually nervous. He's suddenly struggling to find the right words. Finally, he says, "Well, I was kind of wondering if you were doing anything tonight." Later, Peter finds himself aboard the Fantastic Four's aircraft. As they approach the Baxter building, Sue announces that they're almost there and that it should be safe to make everyone visible again. Peter immediately sees an opportunity. He tells Sue that's great news and asks if she would let him bring the ship in for a landing. Sue instantly replies with a firm no. Peter protests and asks why not. Sue answers with just 2 words, "Spider-Mobile." Peter acts confused and asks what's wrong with the Spider-Mobile. Sue asks him where he last parked it. Peter admits that the answer is the East River. After a brief pause, he concedes that she has a point. Still unwilling to give up, Peter asks whether he could at least fly the ship on the way back. Sue rolls her eyes and tells him he's worse than her son. To keep him occupied, she suggests that he go check on their other passengers. Peter then helps Aunt May and MJ, saying, "And how are my 2 special ladies? You guys ready?" Aunt May smiles and tells him he fusses over them far too much. MJ joins in, pointing out that they have spent plenty of time around superheroes before. Peter explains that it's different. "When we were at the Avengers, that's different. That's work. These are our friends." As Peter, Aunt May, and Mary Jane enter the Fantastic Four's living quarters, they're immediately welcomed into a warm and surprisingly normal family atmosphere. Looking around the residence, Peter comments on how nice the place is. Aunt May compliments Sue Storm on her beautiful home. Sue smiles and realizes that, despite all the years they've known each other, Peter has never actually brought his family into the main residence of the Baxter building before. She decides it's long overdue and tells Peter that it's finally time for his family to meet theirs. Soon, everyone settles in and begins talking. Reed Richards carefully hands baby Valeria over to Aunt May, introducing his daughter. May immediately melts at the sight of the little girl and calls her a sweet child while happily holding her. Mary Jane and Sue also start chatting. MJ jokingly dismisses the photos people see of her, claiming most of that is airbrushing. She then turns the conversation towards Sue, teasingly asking how she manages to look so good in a skin-tight costume. Sue laughs and credits unstable molecules, the special material used in Fantastic Four uniforms, saying they're very forgiving. Meanwhile, Johnny and Peter are already back to joking around. The two laugh about old villains, including how Peter's actions once led to Paste Pot Pete changing his name to the Trapster. At that moment, a young boy wearing a Spider-Man shirt runs into the room and carrying toys. It's Franklin Richards. Excitedly, he rushes over to Ben Grimm and asks what's going on and why there are so many people in the house. Then, he notices Peter talking with Johnny and points at him, asking who that guy is. Ben smiles, catching himself before saying too much, and simply tells Franklin that Peter is a friend of the family. He adds,
"Trust me, I think you're gonna like him a lot."
Ben reaches over and picks up a book that Franklin received as a Christmas gift. The book is filled with photographs of Spider-Man, and Ben points out that Peter is the person who took all of them. The moment Franklin hears that, his eyes light up. He immediately runs over to Peter in excitement and asks if he's really the guy who takes pictures of Spider-Man. Peter confirms that he is. That answer is all Franklin needs. Since Spider-Man is his favorite hero, he instantly decides Peter must be amazing too. Franklin excitedly tells him how cool he is and says Uncle Ben was right about him. Peter then says, "Of course he is. I have it on the best authority that Uncle Bens are always right." Franklin starts asking questions about Spider-Man's enemies, wondering if Peter's favorite bad guy is someone like the Lizard or Electro. Looking around, Peter notices one of Franklin's Human Torch action figures lying nearby. Picking it up, he says that his favorite is actually this one right here. Franklin immediately says,
"Ha, but that's Uncle Johnny. He's a good guy."
Peter agrees. Sure, but they all fight all the time. Franklin doesn't understand why friends would fight. Peter explains that sometimes that's just what friends do. As the evening continues, Ben eventually announces that dinner is ready and calls everyone to the table. Meanwhile, Franklin stays behind for a moment, happily playing with his toys. He stages a battle between his Spider-Man and Human Torch figures. As everyone heads toward the dinner table, Johnny wastes no time. He flames on and rockets across the room, loudly claiming the seat next to Aunt May before anyone else can get there. Peter immediately complains that that's not fair, but Johnny is clearly enjoying himself. Meanwhile, Reed Richards asks, "Sue, have you seen my cambot?" "Ah, there it is." He then starts adjusting it. Sue tells him to stop tinkering with gadgets and sit down because the children are getting restless. Reed looks around and points out that the children seem perfectly fine. Sue quickly clarifies that she isn't talking about Franklin and Valeria. She's talking about the big children. At the table, Johnny continues causing trouble. Seeing Peter's food, he offers to heat it up for him with his powers. Peter immediately objects and reminds him that the dish is supposed to be served cold and warns him not to even think about it. Meanwhile, Reed directs the floating cambot to take pictures. When asked where it should file the pictures it has taken, Reed pauses for a moment and says, "I'd say place this and all future Parker files under Friends and Family." The camera snaps a picture of the entire group sharing dinner together. The photo is labeled "Our First Dinner with the Parkers." Then it jumps forward through time using a collection of photographs, showing that Peter Parker's relationship with the Fantastic Four didn't end with that first dinner. Instead, he became a permanent part of their extended family. One photograph shows everyone gathered together after a poker night, sharing milk and cookies while relaxing and laughing. Another captures a spring break at Ben's. A Christmas photo follows, showing the annual gift exchange. Another picture from one of the Fantastic Four trademark adventures, a trip to the Macroverse with Peter. The final photograph focuses on Peter Parker and Johnny Storm. The two friends are standing side by side wearing matching "I'm with stupid" t-shirts, with each shirt's arrow pointing directly at the other person. Even after everything they've been through together, they're still teasing and annoying each other exactly the same way they always have. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.